It is your Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That is brand new stuff from the band Diamond Head. The name of that song is The Belly of the Beast. It is from the brilliant new record, The Coffin Train. And on the line right now is a guy that is certainly not on the Coffin Train. He's alive and kicking. It is Brian Tatler. Brian, how are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Nice to speak to you again.
Absolutely. Well, Brian,
yeah, great.
There's definitely good reason to be speaking again. I have to tell you, man, this new record is phenomenal. The Coffin Train is absolutely, as a fan of the band, I'm going to say that you guys are the strongest you've ever been. This is, without question, my favorite work that you've done.
Wow. That's fantastic. I really love to hear that because when you put a long time into a record and you're never completely sure if people are going to like it, it's so satisfying to hear people who've never heard it before just suddenly come back at you with that and go, wow, it's a great record. So I do appreciate that, and I'll pass on your compliments to the rest of the guys.
Excellent. Well, Brian, since we're talking right about the record right from the start, let's talk about why not only this record, but more or less since I'm calling it a comeback, although you guys really never really went away, but you guys have surged the last 5 years, and there seems like there's just such a different creative energy than there has been since the original incarnation of the band. Where is that coming from? Is that just that you're ready to be out there again, or is it Rasmus joining the band, or what?
I think a lot of it's got to be Rasmus. He is such a great singer and a very creative guy. So it's freed me up, really, to be able to write anything, write more, give him, ideas that maybe some singers wouldn't necessarily be able to work with, to add things to, add melody to, and add put their piece of the pie. But Rasmus is so creative that I can give him anything, and he won't bat an eyelid. It's all good. He has put a lot of energy into the band. I think our new bass player, Dean, as well, he joined in 2016, right. And he is a real powerhouse bass player, and that's given us an extra level as well. We would seem tighter than ever and more powerful. So it's a great band. It's a really strong lineup. The 5 guys. It's fearless. We can do anything.
Sure. Now you, who's obviously been there the whole time, when you're not only in the practice room but on stage or whatever, do you feel like this is Diamond Head, meaning it's got the same energy or that same? Let me back up to explain what I mean here. We talk all the time on our show about, what makes a band. Is it one guy? Is it 2 guys? How many originals do there need to be? Et cetera. And one of the arguments is always it's that energy. It's that certain, and it doesn't matter who necessarily brings it. I think for Diamond Head, you are obviously the guy. And you bring that same energy, that same frenetic, energy that Diamond Head had from the beginning, even now. But for you as a member of the band, does it feel? Do you feel that there is a thread that goes from day one to day 10,001 or whatever we're at now?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think it's partly the way I write, the bands that I grew up listening to that influenced me. I play in a certain way, certain chords. I'm always looking for riffs. Everything's based on a guitar riff. I write now the same way as I've always written. It starts with a riff, and then I've probably learned some tricks over the years.
Sure.
But basically, you've still got to be able to come up with a good riff, and then your singer has got to be able to come up with a top line and then just make it happen. So I think it's a better produced album than the last one, and but it's still chock full of riffs, and it's sort of classic Diamond Head, but with a modern twist.
Sure.
I think that's where we're at now. Sonically, I think Raz produced this album, our singer, and I think all along he was looking to kind of move us forward production-wise and make us sound a bit more modern, maybe a bit more competitive with the sort of metal and the music he's been listening to, being of a different generation.
Sure.
But retain what's great about Diamond Head and what the early albums like Light Into the Nations and Borrowed Time, what people loved about those albums, we always want to continue that thread right up to today.
Sure, and you've definitely done that with the Coffin Train. Although there are new elements, one thing that jumps out at me, and it's not so much that you've never done this before, but it's never been a focal point as much as with the Coffin Train. Is you've written a lot of more, for lack of a better term, epic type songs, bigger, growing, large songs like the title track and Serrated Love and stuff like that. They're very big, giant compositions. Was that you guys taking on something new?
It's nice to hear that. Thank you.
Well, was that something you guys were going for this time, or is it just songs that were written?
I think so. Okay. The classic Diamond Head songs like "Am I Evil," "The Prince," "To the Devil His Due," "Helpless," "Night of the Swords." There's a lot of big epics. "To Heaven from Hell," and we sort of wanted to do that. We wanted to have like tempo changes and bring in sections here, and we worked that way, thinking almost like let's write another classic. Let's try and outdo the classic Diamond Head songs. You're sort of in that mindset, and Raz is very good at coming in and sort of chopping through the wood from the trees kind of thing and saying, that's a really good riff there, and we need a chorus, and I like this bit, and, do more of that. And so he's got very involved with the writing and the production, and I think he's just really maybe brought out more of myself and more of what works for Diamond Head, and it has been a very fruitful partnership, myself and him. We work really well together. There's no agenda, there's no ego, really, that I want more than you, kind of, all kinds of problems can come in the way. But it's a great partnership, and he's a pleasure to work with. He's a bit of a perfectionist, which can be a problem. But in a way, it's better than someone who just says, it'll do, it'll be all right. And I think we did lose our way a little when we had Nick in the band. We made two good albums, but we sort of shied away from the big songs, the big epic songs, the 6-minute songs. We kind of pared it down a little simpler, 3-4 minute songs. And so kind of lost something that Diamond Head had in those early days, but we've brought it back with a vengeance for the Coffin Train.
No question. Now, what does that title actually mean? I mean, I've obviously heard the song, and I could put an interpretation on it, but I'm curious from you, what are you guys representing with that song?
Okay, it is simply a dream that Raz had, because at the time we were trying to come up with some titles and album titles, and Raz came up with that title, and I said, what's that? What's the Coffin Train? And he said, I had this dream, there's a big train coming towards me, and all the coffins are shaped like, all the carriages are shaped like coffins, not the other way around. And it just felt like a strong image, and we thought, that's got to be the title track for the album, and we'll work on the design with the train on the cover, and so that's all it is. It's Raz sort of writing about this dream he had, it's almost like a nightmare where, you know, the dystopian future type thing where the Earth has turned to shit and there's nuclear explosions, and it's kind of Save the Planet nightmare type thing, you know, where it's all gone horribly wrong.
Sure.
So that's you know, that's kind of, I think, where Raz was coming from with that lyric.
Very cool. Well, totally different than I envisioned. I had the thought in my head that it was like a military type of a deal with, you know, because you obviously on the military you see the coffins coming off the planes and whatever. I thought maybe it was some reference.
Okay.
But very
no, he's not mentioned that. I mean, that's a very powerful image.
Sure.
You know, when you see that on the news, I must admit. But now, I mean, he's from Denmark, isn't he, Raz? He's about mid-30s, so he's got a slightly different outlook on politics and life to myself. And I think they're very green, Denmark. They're very questioning. They want to know why it's got to be like this. Why is it got to be like that? And, you know, save the planet. And,
right.
And so I mean, it's all good. He's coming from the right place. But he'd much rather use his opportunity to write about something than you know, me and my baby, we're going down the highway. And that's not for Raz. He's a bit more passionate about everything, right. Literally, right. Than that. Yeah.
And somehow I don't know that Diamond Head fans would know what to do with a "Me and My Baby" song.
No, not really. But you know, it works for some bands. Sure. It's just probably not where we are.
Very true. Well, you mentioned the cover, Brian. So, who actually did the artwork? Because the artwork is very. It's compelling, I think, is the right word to put to it. It's nice. Definitely spooky.
It's a great cover. I'm really pleased with all the artwork. That was done by Travis Smith, who's from California, all done over the net. I've been friends with Dave Mustaine for a long time, and I was talking to him, and he put me in touch with Travis. As you know, I know this good artist, and so we sent him some ideas, and he sent them back, and fantastic. So for about the past 12 months, we've been having like ideas and sending things backwards and forwards, and he did a T-shirt design and some flyers and things like that. He's worked with Iced Earth and Cradle of Filth and Opeth and some really big bands. If you look on his website. So he's a real metal artist, and we gave him the idea to do a train and all that, and he went out and took pictures of trains, and it's a fantastic job. I think it's the best cover we've had since, you know, maybe, you know, Borrowed Time or something long time ago.
No question. Well, Brian, you know, over the last few years, one of the things that you know has been really cool as a fan of the band and for fans of the band has been that you've been able not only to just tour, but you've been able to tour the States, you know, a little bit more regularly, you know, than you really have. You know, I'm 50, and I don't ever remember a time in the 90s seeing that you guys were playing anywhere, which has been great. You know, for you've obviously met a bunch of fans and are seeing new fans, you know, that are out. Are the fans coming out now for the music since you've been kind of back and you've released a few albums and, you know, and are releasing some of your best music? Are they coming out for that, or are they coming out because they've heard, you know, the Prince and, you know, the Metallica stuff?
It's definitely a bit of both.
Okay.
It's definitely these older guys who saw the band in, you know, 1983 or whatever.
Sure.
Then there'd be younger guys who might have got into the band through Metallica, and then there's other sort of guys who kind of like the new wave of British heavy metal, and they like Iron Maiden, for example, or Saxon, and so we're all part of that. Diamond Head is definitely a part of the sort of back people that like those kind of bands. I would imagine there's some guys who would get into the band from day one, sort of now kind of thing rather, where maybe all I've heard is the new album or the last album, and they come and check it out, you know, and think, oh, I like this band. But I don't know if we're seeing that as much I'd like, but I think there is an element of that there. It's always good when you can go on stage and there's some younger guys in the audience, because they've obviously got a bit more energy, and they can, they help feed us. We feed them, they feed us, and it kind of, can make for a more exciting show if there's some younger guys come out to see the band.
Sure.
But it is amazing that we're able to continue to tour and make music after all this time. It's quite surprising,
Sure.
I never kind of take it for granted.
Definitely not. Well, and one of the interesting things that's probably unique to right now and only right now in the band's history is the whole streaming music thing. Because let's say as an example, somebody looks up "Helpless." They heard Metallica play it. Yep. They know it's your cover. They just want to hear what you guys play. Sounded like playing it. They look you up on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. Yeah, they'll find that song, but they'll find the new songs as well. It's probably one of the few times in musical history where your back catalog will absolutely feed new listeners to your current project. No?
Good point. I had not considered that, but you're right. You're probably right. People will check out the older stuff and then say, "Oh, they've got a new album out, the Coffin Train. Let's have a listen," and hopefully be blown away by it.
Sure.
So the freshness of the band now is really something to behold. So I'm sure we'll be pulling in new fans, but that is a good way to put it. I hadn't considered that. Well said.
Thanks. Well, Brian, since we're talking touring, I'm going to imagine you're going to get the opportunity to take the Coffin Train out on the tracks, so to speak.
Absolutely.
What's it look like for the rest of the year?
Yeah, get on board this Coffin Train. It's all across Europe. We're doing festivals up to December. We've also got some dates with Saxon in the UK and in Germany. We've just announced a tour with Black Star Riders in October, which would be nice. Yeah, we've not played with those before. We've done a festival with them, but not as a tour. We're hoping to get over to the US in the new year. So that's sort of being worked on now. We're talking about Japan as well in the new year, 2020. But, going back to something you said earlier, Diamond Head's toured the US quite a bit in the past 8-9 years.
Right.
And we never came over in the 80s and 90s, and it was a real shame that we missed the opportunity to come over when we should have done with the original lineup and all that. But, as you may know, Diamond Head never had professional management in the early days. We had people helping out and, sort of amateurs sort of learning on the job, and no one had a clue how to get Diamond Head over to the US and to tour it. But we seem to have figured that out now. We can do it ourselves now, and we've got an agent in the US, and we can make it work. We can, get the fees where we need to pay for visas and flights and hotels and vans and things like that. So we can make it work, and we've been doing it since 2001, really. 2011 we started coming over quite regularly. Right. So we've probably built up a bit of a following across US and Canada.
Absolutely. Now, Brian, I'm looking at touring and stuff that goes on. One, what I think is a lost art is bands taking out other bands that are like them. And one tour, at least here in the States, I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but you probably are, that is doing that well is Judas Priest on this current tour took out Uriah Heep, a band from that era. Do you think that is a lost art that has kind of left a lot of bands like Diamond Head not getting represented to fans? You guys have put out strong record after strong record, like you said, the last 7-8 years, and it would be nice, not to throw Metallica under the bus. I'm certainly not doing that, but it sure would be nice to see the influencer playing with, the biggest band in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. From what I can gather, is bands like Metallica and a lot of those bands, is they like to go out with the new bands, the hot shit bands that are, getting all the front cover of Kerrang kind of bands.
Yeah.
And if you go out with an older band, a more, historic act, then they just think, well, we just... I think they're constantly trying to renew their audience by bringing in the young kids who would be interested to see a band, say, like Ghost, for example, or Avenged Sevenfold, and then hopefully suck in their crowd once they see Metallica and think, good grief, these are good. Whereas if you took out, for example, Uriah Heep, it's probably an older crowd, so they're probably fans anyway, and you may not make so many new fans as if you're constantly taking out young bands. Yeah. That's the only way I think it works for them.
Right.
But I mean, it's more of a package deal, isn't it? If you've got, say, so for example, you could have AC/DC, UFO, and Uriah Heep, and that's more of a package thing, isn't it? There, and you'd know that you'd enjoy all three bands.
Exactly.
You wouldn't necessarily think, "Well, I've never heard these two support bands," because you'd know the songs, wouldn't you? There'd be some classics in there, so you'd have a good time.
Sure.
But maybe that doesn't happen as often as we'd all like.
Right. Well, I could tell you, I saw Metallica in February, and I would have much rather seen 30, 40 minutes of your band than the comedian that was out in front of them. And that's not smashing them. I'm just saying, as a fan that's been a fan since 1982 or whatever, it would have been great to see the what do you want to call it? The influencer in front of the master, more or less. But in any event, I get that we're gonna be able to see you guys in the rest of the year or early next year, which is great. So Brian, the new album is called The Coffin Train. It is Diamond Head, of course. And why don't you pick a song to wrap the interview up with, and maybe tell us a quick story about it.
Okay, what about if you play the title track, The Coffin Train? That's my favourite track on the album. I love the dynamics. I'm always trying to fit dynamics into my songwriting. So I think I got it right on that. I think it's one of the best things I've ever done, and I'm really proud of it. So listen and enjoy.
All right, well, let's check it out right now. It is The Coffin Train. It's Diamond Head right here on your Classic Metal Show.